Good day, everyone. Today, we will explore the different topics covered in Chapter 6, which focuses on corporate social responsibility. By the end of this discussion, we hope that you will have a better understanding.
So on the next slide is the learning objectives. There are 6 learning objectives. First is explain the concept of corporate social responsibility. Second, educate the basic premises, arguments for and against corporate social responsibility. Third, reason out on the need of corporate social responsibilities initiative. Fourth is enumerate and discuss the ethical decision-making process. Fifth, describe the issues considered in social screening of investments. And lastly, sixth, exhibit understanding of corporate greenwashing.
Now let's proceed to the introduction. Corporate social responsibility, or CSR, has become a prominent aspect of modern businesses. Shifting from ideology to practical implementation, organizations face a growing pressure to demonstrate accountable corporate responsibility as they are viewed as the key drivers in constructing a better world. CSR involves businesses going beyond profit to consider their impact on stockholders and society. They are expected to engage in ethical practices, environmental sustainability, philanthropy, and community involvement. Stakeholders demand transparency and accountability, recognizing businesses' influence on societal and environmental outcomes. As CSR evolves, it remains crucial for business to integrate responsible practices into their operation for long-term success and societal benefits. Let's proceed to the concept of corporate social responsibility, or CSR. CSR history. CSR traces its root back to the traditional economic model advocated by Adam Smith in the 18th century. Smith's ideas, still influential today, laid the foundation for free market economics. However, the Industrial Revolution brought about significant societal changes, leading to the emergence of social dwarfism, where many individuals focus solely on their own advancement, neglecting broader social responsibilities. Corporate social responsibility has evolved over time with significant shift in societal attitude and expectations towards large corporations. In the early 20th century, there was a growing backlash against big businesses. Later in the 1960s and 1970s, the civil rights movements, consumerism, and environmentalism further influence public perception of corporate behavior. Today, CSR is about companies voluntarily integrating social and environmental concern into their operation and interaction with stakeholders. This recognition stems from the understanding that responsible behavior not only benefits society, but also leads to sustainable business success.
So for this slide, we will talk about argument for and against CSR. First is economic. The economic argument against CSR is perhaps most closely associated with the American economist Milton Friedman, who argued that the primary responsibility of business is to make a profit for its owners. According to this perspective, dedicating resources to the CSR initiative beyond profit making can detract from shareholders' wealth and undermine the core purpose of businesses. So, Friedman's stance reflects a belief in the supremacy of free market capitalism, where businesses operates within legal boundaries but are not obligated to pursue social environmental goal beyond profit maximization. Next is the competitive. The competitive arguments recognize the fact that addressing social issues come at a cost to business. So, while initiatives like sustainable sourcing or fair labor practices can enhance reputation and attract consumers, they also require financial investments. In highly competitive markets, business must balance social responsibility with profitability, often prioritizing cost-cutting measures to maintain competitiveness. So, the last is capability. The capability argument suggests that business executives and managers are typically well trained in the ways of finance, marketing, and operation management, but not well versed in dealing with complex societal issues. So, the capability argument suggests that while Uh, the capability arguments that suggest that while business executives excel in areas like finance and marketing, they may lack expertise in dealing with complex societal issues. This includes topics like environmental sustainability and social justice. Next is a very different argument in favor of corporate social responsibility is self-interest argument. This is long-term perspective that suggests corporations should conduct themselves in such a way the present as to assure themselves of a favorable operating environment in the future. By doing so, they can build trust, enhance their reputation, reduce risk, and stay competitive in the market. Essentially, it's not about securing a favorable operating environment for the future by being socially responsible now.
Number one example, business leaders. They are known that a company long-term value depends on the ability to adapt the social needs. Number two, consumer. Consumer, they are preferred to companies that prioritize the consumer protection, human rights, and environmental sustainability. Number three, employees. Employees, they are want to work a company that shares their values and prioritize the CHR, CSR. Number four, investors. Investors, they seek the companies that manage to risk well and show the entrepreneurial and spirit includes the commitment of to CSR. That's all. Thank you. Basic premises of CSR. Number one example. Local communities. Local communities, they are want to business to act a responsibility and positively impact their surroundings. Number two, media, they are showcase both good and bad as CHR practice influence public and perception. Number three, NGOs, non-government organization, they are exposed irresponsible and corporate and behavior and push for more transparency and accountability. Number four, regulators, they aim to ensure the business contribute possibly to social while the laws and ethical standard.
So, on the next slide is the specific relevance of corporate social responsibilities. First, changing social expectation. Second, competitive labor markets. Third, disclosure demands by stakeholders. Fourth is dwindling government role. Fifth, globalization. Sixth, pressure from investors. Seventh, supplier relations. And eighth, wealth and vulnerabilities.
So, ethical leadership refers to the practice of leading with integrity, honesty, and fairness, while prioritizing the well being of others and the greater good. It involves making decisions
based on moral principles and taking responsibility for the consequences of those decisions. Example of ethical leadership is is a CEO who prior, who prioritize who prioritizes employee well-being by implementing fair wages, fostering fostering an inclusive work environment, and making environmentally sustainable business choices. So next is leaders. Leaders who are ethical are stakeholder oriented and also conscious of how their decision affects others. Ethical leaders prioritize stakeholders' interests over self-serving motives, considering the broader impact of their decisions on internal stakeholders, industry, customers, and the public. Example, a corporate leader who chooses to invest in sustainable practices not only benefits their company's bottom line but also positively impacts the environment, community, and future generations, demonstrating ethical leadership. So next topic is ethical decision-making process in organizations. Ethics in an organization refers to system values, philosophies, and principles that govern the behavior of organizational members, which are the consequences of organizational pronouncement. Ethics in an organization encompass the system values, philosophies, and principles that dictate the behavior of its members, step from the organization's official declaration and policies. These guidelines shape how individuals within the organization conduct themselves and make decisions. And next, ethical decision making is the process of trying to establish organizational values from which ethical decision will be based from. Ethical decision making involves establishing organizational values as a foundation for ethical choices. This process requires leaders to consider three key questions. Question is, did they provide leadership and oversight? Did they nurture individuals by fostering responsibility and accountability? Will the decision facilitate improvements, particularly re- regarding compliance requirements within the operational corporate context? Answering this question ensures ethical considerations are central to decision making processes within the organization. And last is decision making. Decision making is an essential process for organizational effectiveness. Decision making is vital for organizational effectiveness as it enables leaders to allocate resources, solve problems, save opportunities, and achieve goals. By making informed and timely decisions, organizations can adapt to changing environments, improve performance, and maintain a competitive edge. Efficient decision making contributes to overall organizational success and sustainability.
Decision making is an essential process for organizational effectiveness. Decision making is nearly universally defined as choosing between choices. It is closely related to the traditional management functions. In the context of ethical decision making process, the following may help decision makers of organizations lay down decisions aligned with their CSR principles. The number one is the withdraw. Before you look at it objectively, step back first and have a calibrated response for thrilling, rushed, and demanding scenarios, whether self-imposed or outside source. It is not popularity and power, nor winning on high drama. It's fairness. As much as possible, it should be a winner takes all. Ending solutions should spring instead of um, imposing decisions which might make some parties and stakeholders unhappy. The second one is be an archivist. Organizational history may have much to learn from. Review how previous situations were handled, which would reduce the risk of making horrendous mistakes. Some of the fundamentals in this world are not really new despite how distinctive you believe your situation to be. History is also good warehouse of already invented wheels which can often save you time and pain of trying to and effectively invent a new one. The third one is the option doing nothing. Gather the facts from all available standpoints. More often, a DOE issue offers three main alternatives. The first one is personal view, second one is the main alternative option, and the third one is the normally underestimated, ever, val- ever available option of doing nothing. Doing nothing is in times of real emergency can be um, catastrophic, but for an incredibly large number of circumstances, doing nothing is the only truly wise way. The fourth one is the be conscious of long-term effects. So realize the long-term consequence, do same base case modeling and tweaking, think of the what if scenario. History can again be a good source for models for anything given situation. The fifth one is the consider uh, legally legalities and ethics. Consider legality ethics. There might be parties or stakeholders inside and outside of the firm that might be affected by your decision. So it is basic to check the law first, and once you are cleared on the legal bar, check its ethical issue. And in a sincere CSR practice, what is legal can just be the minimum, and not all legal are ethical. The sixth one is ask around. When it comes to this, um, consult with people, more importantly, to the ones you consider crucial, and get out from your close circle. Be conscious, and you are not looking for a friendly advice that is most of the time and biased and comforting. And like consult with people or party most affected by the situation. When you do some examination and assessment and analysis, and make sure instruments is balanced and objective. The number seven is be comprehensively sensitive. So be concerned about the effect as deeply as possible, because any business decision, big or small, will have an effect in one way or another, directly and indirectly to stakeholders. And some may affect a lot of people on the environment and now and far into the future. Number eight is do not be dangerous or alpha male. Decision makers should defy the illusion of arrogance that the power and authority tends to the associated with. Excuse me. This is particularly essential to safeguard against you live and work in a protected, insulated or isolated situation. Being a leader for a long time or for any duration in a culture arrogance, comfort and privilege nourishes personal delusion, and a good number unethical decision are products and arrogance and delusion. And the last one is find a win-win solution. Decision makers should detach himself from the different partilities of the issue for him to arrive at an objective decision, and never be carried by the pressure of swelling expectation for any group or party who believe they are in a finer end of the issue and thus they should be also favored and find a Solomonic decision if possible. So now let's proceed with the next slide, the myth about the organizational ethics. Being ethical is easy. From the business standpoint, being ethical is not easy, considering that to be ethical means that business conduct most of the time has to be beyond a minimum legal requirement. Second, there is no such things as cost-free compliance effort. Third, being ethical could mean being a bee flying towards a huge web of unethical entities that can easily overwhelm the company. So it is hard to withstand the pressure when almost everybody deviates and their deviation is already part of the system. So the tendency of being carried into this bandwagon mentality may entice the decision makers of corporation to cross the line and start to find justification for some act deemed unethical. Being ethical is not part of doing business. Being ethical is part of parcel of doing business, and it should be something that comes with the existence of the enterprise. And when the state grants that the business the authority to operate, it is implied that along with the mandate comes to the responsibilities to comply with ethical standard. And also, being ethical brings no benefit. Like, it is not true that being ethical has no reward. Like, arguably, the only investment without any loss is being ethical. Ethical companies are standouts. They have the confidence of the investors, the support of the community and other stakeholders, and the most importantly, the trust of their members. So these, along with the great vision, can definitely bring success and stability.
Good day. Today we will talk about why ethics is not the same as feelings. Ethics is not following culturally accepted norms. Ethics is not just following the laws. Ethics is not religion. And ethics is not science. So, why ethics is not the same as feelings? So, ethics provides a framework for right and wrong, while feelings can be subjective and influenced by personal experiences. Therefore, feelings can inform our ethical decisions, they alone don't determine what's ethical. So, next, why ethics is not following culturally accepted norms? Ethics asks us to consider fairness and universal principles, while cultural norms can be based on tradition or local needs. This means ethical behavior may challenge cultural norms like fighting discrimination, even if it is historically accepted. So, why ethics is not just following the laws? Ethics go beyond the law, setting higher standards for right and wrong. Laws often represent the minimum acceptable behavior, while ethics can consider fairness, honesty, and consequences that extend beyond legal boundaries. For example, lying to a friend might be legal but still unethical. So, why ethics is not religion? Ethics is not religion because ethics focus on reason and logic to determine right and wrong, while religion often relies on faith and divine authority. Ethical principles can be debated and evolve, but religious doctrines are typically seen as fixed. This allows ethics to adapt to new situations whereas religious teachings might not address every modern dilemma. So, why ethics is not a science? Ethics is not a science because ethics deals with values and what ought to be done, while science focuses on this observing and explaining the natural world. Science seeks universally true facts through experiments, while ethical questions often have multiple perspectives with no single right answer. Though science can inform our understanding of human behavior, ethical decisions often involve weighing competing, valuing, and considering the context. So, what is corporate citizenship? Corporate citizenship refers to the acceptance by business of a conscious effort in focusing and in satisfying the economic, legal, ethical, philanthropic, and social responsibilities and other acts expected from the corporation to do its stakeholders. It recognizes that a company or organization is not and should not act in separation of the community or communities within which it operates. As a general, corporate citizenship refers to a company's social responsibility and how it considers the impact of its actions on society as a whole. This goes beyond just legal obligations and involves ethical practices that benefit the community and environment, alongside financial success. In short, it's about being a good neighbor and contributing to a better world. Corporate citizenship has the following key elements: commitment to quality, ethical legal compliance, stewardship and governance, superior employee relation, social advocacy, environmental advocacy, and community involvement. Corporate citizenship needs these key elements to ensure a company operates sustainably and considers all its stakeholders. This is essential because it is not only builds trust and reputation, but also attracts a talented workforce and minimizes negative environmental and social impacts. Ultimately, strong corporate citizenship strengthens a company's long-term success.
Hi, A Wonders Day Ahead. I am Arian Gulchano, and for the next topic, I am going to discuss the philanthropy and social initiatives. So, for the context of philanthropy, it is the practice or like the activity of giving money or like the monetary support and time to help make life better for other people. So, to further understand or to further comprehend its basic concept, we have here the so called corporate philanthropy, which refers to the giving of the life to the company's profit directly to charitable organizations or to individual in need with the intention of helping and improving the quality of life. So to simply encapsulate everything, when we say philanthropy, yung context niya is take for example, I myself, I am having my business or like I do have my business and yung lahat ng profit na kikitain ko with that is i-donate ko siya through charitable organizations processes or like activities with all due transparency and also sincerity and generosity. So yung profit, instead na bibilhin ko siya ng other assets, ipupunta ko siya or idodonate ko siya dun sa mga organizations or sa community na need ng help or need ng raise or ng funds for us to be compatible with that. So, meron din mga benefits ang isang corporate philanthropy, which is matatakal siya through the business, to the community, and also to the stakeholders. So, kapag sa business, ano ba yung magiging benefits ng philanthropy? Siyempre, broad siya. It's very eclectic. Malaki ang magiging benefits or makukuha nating benefits when we donate or when we proceed to the act of charity. Take for example, yung business natin, it will enhance corporate reputation. So, hindi lang natin pinapabango yung products na meron tayo, but also the company itself, the name of our company itself. Take for example, ako, yung company ko, babango siya sa mata ng mga consumers. Or sa market itself, tataas yung ratings. Kasi the more I give charitable the more I proceed to the activities such as charitable organizations, mas lalong tataas yung tendency na makikilala yung business ko in a way or in such a way na maganda yung magiging reputation niya. Next is it improves relations with the government, the community, and also the key stakeholders. And the last but not the least is yung supports a company's strategic business goals. Dito kasi, when we have the mission, ano ba yung mission mo? Ba't ka nagtayo ng isang business? Of course, to have profit. Of course, to market your target customers or your target location. Hindi ka gagawa ng business kasi trip mo lang. Gagawa ka ng business because gusto mong kumita. Gusto mo magkaroon ng markup price, gusto mo magkaroon ng profit in general. And para magkaroon ka ng profit, the heart for that or the heart for your business is your customers. So paano mo i-market yung customers mo? This is actually one of the greatest ideas na pwede mong i-indulge sa business mo. Take for example me as a marketer, pwede kong gamitin yung pagkakataon na mag-join sa mga charitable organizations for the sake of my business, for the sake of my strategic plans in the future na pwede kong gawin sa business ko. Next is yung to the community. Anong meron sa community? Bakit tayo nakakakuha ng benefits with regard to that? So, it improves quality of life to the community members. Example, nagbigay ka ng help or ng funds dun sa mga community na need ng help or na need ng help mo. So, parang, with that, matulungan natin sila with all due transparency and also with all due organically. So, parang, hindi lang tayo nakakatulong sa sarili nating business, but also natutulungan din natin yung mga tao na nandoon or that spots within that location or within that community. And isa pa, pwede silang maging daan para para ma-market pa more mismo yung business na ginapamahala mo. Next is it provides human and capital resources to non-profit organizations. And the last is yung the stakeholders. Ano yung benefits na makuha ng isang business or ano yung makuha natin sa philanthropy through the stakeholders. So it builds employee morale and engagements. It also enlarges sense of community and social obligations. Gaya nga nasabi ko kanina, when we do this act, the philanthropy context, we are permeating positivity sa ating market. Itong mga tao na ito, itong mga consumers na ito, pwedeng gamitin nila yung mga ideas nila na nakuha nila because of that specific act, just charitable specific act, pwede tayo makagawa ng mas maganda pang ideas or mas makapag-permeate pa ng mas magandang parang future endeavors dun sa business na meron tayo. Next is it develops future workforce contributing to a sustainable company. So ayun nga, sabi ko kanina, yung workforce na meron tayo is mas mag-enlarge pa, mas magkakaroon pa ng mas malawak na scope yung business natin kasi mas makikilala tayo in such a way na makikilala tayo hindi sa paraan na pangit. Kumbaga, yung pinapakita nating reputation or publicity, this is actually a form of publicity kasi yung pag-join sa mga ganitong organization is a form of publicity wherein mas nakakahakot tayo ng scope sa mas malalayong mga target audience or sa geographic area. So, yun yung advantages or yung benefits na pwede nating makuha when we join or when we indulge sa knowledge ng philanthropy. So, next in line is the social screening of investments. So here, they differ in the extent of their intricacies and thus vary also as far as to the degree of difficulty of implementation. So it is not necessary that they individually are exclusive because some can be combined in various ways. So we have here the so-called scare off from strategy. So according to this is considered as the most rigid way. So pag sinabi natin rigid way, this is one of the hardest way or like sabi dito is the hardest way. So this is considered as the most rigid way screening of investments. So in line with that, it can be characterized by hard policies such as no investments to those companies with questionable environmental records, those engaged in child labor, discrimination in accordance with sex, racial, religious, cultural, and other circumstances. Those who use animals in product testing and many other anti-earth or anti-green policies. Yung ano kasi, yung paggamit ng mga animals, very known yan siya when it comes to like yung product testing ng mga cosmetics. Usually yung mga rabbit, yun yung mga examples na mabibigay dyan. So, in line with that also, it is worthy to note that while the above strategy is hard to implement from the point of view or like for the investor's point of view, some companies or investees do find some ways to appear as appealing to the investors by employing some mitigating features and the way they do businesses. Pag sinabing mitigating, syempre parang they kind of like reduce it. So, next in line is yung impact mitigation. So, notice how they are very interrelated to each other kasi they are. So, some socially concerned investors deal with the problems inherent in absolute screening by using the strategy of balance with benefit. So, sa approach naman na ito, this is founded upon the idea that for everything, the company does not or does there is always an impact to the stakeholders. So, for example, is yung Fisher Fox na binibigyan ng alternative livelihood by companies doing some seismic testing and eventually drilling for oil exploration in their fishing area. Next in line is yung whoever is the best. So sa strategy naman na ito, it involves a kind of free market model where companies within the same industries compete with one another for the best records on a variety of social issues. So siguro yung pinaka-example na mabibigay ko dito is yung environmental awareness and best social practices like best records for the recruitment, training and promotion of women, and family-friendly practices. Actually, madami pa, pero yun yung mga, siguro yung mga nasa top tier lists na meron, according na rin sa material na binasa ko. And next, yung last but not the least, of course, is yung main or derivative connections. Sa strategy naman na ito, so it requires investors to decide whether or not they are concerned if an investment has a secondary involvement with a social problem. So also, it involves you asking how far back in the industrial process one wants a particular social screen to go. So, siguro, example here is yung it is acceptable if a coal utility purchases coal from a mining company with a bad environmental record. Kasi, take for example, yung the hamburger connection is an example of this strategy. So, ayun. Another is yung sweatshop issue of Nike. Will it be just alright to purchase a pair of, shoes that is allegedly made out of child labor? So, kayo, tatanungin niyo yung sarili niyo, are you going to eat in a restaurant with the best beef in town as their signature dish, even if it means clearing forests to give way to soya plantations for cattle feeds? Siguro ngayon, nowadays, pinakapatok na issue ngayon is yung sa McDonald's and yung sa Starbucks, yung pagbo-boycott natin ng generation natin ngayon, pagbo-boycott ng mga media or ng mga netizens kasi nga they support somehow yung dalawang malalaking company na yon is they support the Israel, yung funds ng Israel, they support with that antithetical sa sinusuportahan sa Free Palestine na nangyayari. So, that's very unethical for us. Why would you support those companies na alam mo namang hindi sinusuportahan what is just? So, that's one of the examples that's really, triggering here in the main or derivative connections. So, that's all. Thank you. And now, let's proceed to the next reporter.
Greenwashing refers to the practice of companies characterized by deceptively making it appear that their products, services, and policies are environmentally friendly by projecting cost cuts as reduction in use of resources or investments in green concerns like in areas of ecology and environment. To put it more simply, it's a matter of expressing to the world that they support Mother Earth when in fact they really don't. It is green marketing tactics which refer to the deceiving use of green public relations to win the hearts of consumers for purposes of improving image, building up goodwill, and eventually drawing more revenues. These businesses are attempting to engage in a business relationship with consumers who cares about the environment. Now let's consider the following facts. Due to the public interest in environment, the first Earth Day was held on April 22, 1970. As a result, the industry as a whole started using more environmental advertising to boost its reputation. Public utilities only invested $37.5 million in pollution reduction research, but they spent a total of $300 million on advertising to position themselves as a green, clean company. In 1990, a study published in the Journal of Public Policy and Marketing found that 58% of environmental ads had at least one deceptive claim. This only indicates that one-fourth of all household products marketed during the Earth Day proclaim themselves as being green and environmentally friendly. During 1998, the Federal Trade Commission created the Green Guidelines, which define terms used in environmental marketing. The Nuclear Energy Institute's promises of being environmentally clean were proven false by the Federal Trade Commission the following year. In 1999, greenwashing officially became part of the English language. A term like greensheen is often used to characterize groups who work to show to the public that they support community beneficial policies. The following are the greenwashing scenes. First, the scene of hidden trade-off. It can be candies, drinks, beverages, and other sweets with no sugar label. Second, scene of no proof could be paints, sprays, and aerosols claiming to be fresheners or sanitizers. One example of the scene of vagueness is the use of paper bags, cups, and other packaging and capitalize the term biodegradable to improve company image. Fourth, scene of irrelevance could be products claiming to be CFC-free even though CFCs were banned 20 years ago. Fifth, scene of fibbing could be products falsely claiming to be certified by an internationally recognized environmental standard such as Ecologo, Energy Star, or Green Seal. One example of the scene of lesser of two evils is the organic cigarettes or environmentally friendly pesticides. The scene of worshipping false labels is perpetrated by a product wherein by either words or images gives the impression of third-party endorsement, while in fact and in reality, no such endorsement actually happened. There are several indicators that a company is engaging in greenwashing. When purchasing a product, one should take the following factors into account to determine whether it is genuinely green or merely an advertisement. 1. Poor use of scientific facts or the lack of any common scientific knowledge. Second, the use of buzzwords like carbon intensity, sustainable development, carbon offsets, and clean technology. Third, look at the environmental label on the product. Fourth, never abandon common sense. And lastly, look out for negligible green claims.
Next topic is the equality is equity principle. The rehabilitation rule adopt the equality is equity principle prescribed by the Supreme Court for rehabilitation cases. This principle basically states that once a company goes under rehabilitation, whether secured or unsecured, should be placed on equal footing. Consequently, unlike SEC rules on corporate recovery, the rehabilitation rules do not classify creditors into secured and unsecured creditors. Neither do they give creditors the right to vote against the rehabilitation of the debtor. What the rehabilitation rule grant to give the creditor is the right to oppose or comment on the petition and rehabilitation plan. The court may, however, approve the rehabilitation petition and rehabilitation plan. Or the court may, however, approve the rehabilitation plan even over the objection of the majority of the creditors. So, in its judgment, the rehabilitation of the debtor is feasible and the opposition of the creditor is manifestly unreasonable. So, in deciding whether the opposition of creditor is manifestly unreasonable, the court may consider the following. First, the plan would likely to provide objecting class for creditors with compensation greater than that which they would have received if the asset of the debtor were sold by a liquidator within a 3-month period. Number 2, the shareholder or owners of the debtors lose at least their controlling
The rehabilitation rules provide that in approving in a rehabilitation plan, the court may impose such terms, conditions, or restrictions as may be required for its effective implementation or for the protection and preservation for creditor if the plan fails. Once the plan is approved, it is binding upon the debtor and all persons who may be affected by it, including the creditors. Whether or not they participated in the proceedings or opposed the plan, payment to the creditors shall be allowed only to the extent called for by the plan. An approved rehabilitation plan may be modified or altered only on the motion and if the court determines that such is necessary to achieve the desired targets or goals set forth therein. In the case of the failure of rehabilitation plan, the court motu proprio or upon recommendation of rehabilitation received may terminate the proceedings.
The proposed Corporate Recovery and Insolvency Act in the Philippines, or the CRIA, is an initiative aimed at enhancing the country's insolvency laws. The goal of this proposed act is to provide a more comprehensive and efficient legal framework for the recovery and rehabilitation of financially distressed companies and individuals. This would ultimately encourage the debtors and their creditors to collectively and voluntarily work out a rehabilitation plan. The proposed Corporate Recovery and Insolvency Act, which has been renamed as the Corporate Recovery and Insolvency Act, contains the usual provisions of modern bankruptcy statutes. The proposed legislation also deals with administrative expenses, post-commencement interest, rescission of pre-commencement transactions, new money, and cram down. It takes into consideration existing local context, such as the effect of a stay order on government financial institutions, which enjoy special protection under the Philippine law. The CRIA provides for a classification of creditors and grants them separate voting rights. Lastly, it even addresses the interplay between good governance and insolvency. The proposed Corporate Recovery and Insolvency Act expressly categorized different forms of debt relief available to a corporate debtor in financial distress. These are suspension of payments, fast-track rehabilitation, court-supervised rehabilitation, and the pre-negotiated rehabilitation. So the suspension of payment is a limited remedy that provides a company with a moratorium on debt payments while it negotiates an out-of-court arrangement with its creditors. The moratorium is limited to 3 months under the watch of a conservator. And if the debtor chooses this option, it is precluded from obtaining relief under court-supervised rehabilitation or pre-negotiated rehabilitation for an entire year thereafter. The fast-track rehabilitation is a default relief under the proposed legislation. So there are 3 reasons that a debtor is limited to this remedy. So these are: the debtor has initiated a pre-negotiated rehabilitation proceeding, the debtor is a non-stock corporation and partnership, and a majority of the creditors have requested conversion of the proceeding to court-supervised rehabilitation proceeding. Note that this remedy involves the transfer of the assets of the debtor into a new company which will be owned by the creditors of the debtor in exchange for their credit. The court-supervised rehabilitation, on the other hand, is the counterpart of the rehabilitation proceedings under the present regime. The remedy contemplates the formulation of a plan under the supervision of the court. Thus, the legislation establishes minimum standards for the plan to maintain transparency and fairness. Here, the creditors vote on the plan based on specific classes of creditors. And if a vote of the majority is obtained, That is the time that the court shall approve the rehabilitation plan. Lastly, the pre-negotiated rehabilitation process allows for summary judicial proceedings for debtors seeking ratification of a rehabilitation that was approved by a majority of the creditors before they sought relief from the court. This allows the debtors to establish a comprehensive plan without needing to obtain unanimity as long as the minimal standards in the legislation are met. And a majority of the creditors supports the plan. This relief combines the benefit of an accelerated court process and cram down concept in insolvency law. That would be all for our discussion on Chapter 6 entitled Corporate Social Responsibility. Thank you.